On a quiet suburban street in Ohio, the Carter family looked like they had everything. A beautiful two-story house. 2 reliable cars parked in the driveway. A well-kept lawn. Pictures of smiling vacations hanging in the living room. From the outside, they looked like the perfect American family. But behind their front door, everything was falling apart. Michael Carter, 43, worked as a project manager for a construction company. Every morning he left home before sunrise and returned long after dark. His wife, Emily, worked part-time at a local grocery store while trying to take care of their 2 children. 16-year-old Jake dreamed of becoming a professional basketball player. 10-year-old Sophie simply wanted her family to eat dinner together again. Every month, the same routine repeated itself. Mortgage payment, car loan, health insurance, electric bill, water bill, credit card payments, school expenses, groceries. Every bill seemed bigger than the last. Michael sat alone at the kitchen table one Friday night with a calculator, a laptop, and a stack of unopened envelopes. He rubbed his tired eyes. Another red number. Another payment due. Another month they couldn't catch up. Emily walked into the kitchen carrying 2 cups of coffee. Still working. Michael didn't even look up. I'm trying to figure out which bill can wait. Emily slowly placed the coffee beside him. They already called twice today. Michael sighed. I know. The credit card company says they'll send it to collections. I know. The mortgage is due Monday. I know. His voice echoed through the house. Emily stepped back. Silence filled the room. She quietly picked up her coffee and walked upstairs. Michael buried his face in his hands. He hadn't meant to yell. But the pressure never stopped. The following Monday, Michael arrived at work expecting another ordinary day. Instead, he found dozens of employees standing in the parking lot. No one was smiling. No one was talking. An hour later, everyone gathered in the conference room. The company owner walked onto the stage. His face looked pale. I wish I had better news. The room became completely silent. Our biggest client has canceled several projects. He paused. We have no choice but to reduce our workforce. Michael felt his heart pounding. We're laying off 40 employees today. One by one, names were called. Each employee quietly stood up and walked toward human resources. Michael prayed silently. Please, not me. Then he heard it. Michael Carter. Everything around him disappeared. His ears rang. His hands shook. After 17 years, he had lost his job. That evening, Michael didn't go home immediately. Instead, he sat alone inside his car in a supermarket parking lot. For nearly 3 hours. He couldn't bring himself to tell his family. How could he? Jake needed new basketball shoes. Sophie had a school field trip next month. Emily was already working extra shifts. He stared at his reflection in the rearview mirror. I failed. When Michael finally walked through the front door, Emily immediately noticed something was wrong. You look exhausted. Michael forced a smile. Long day. Jake barely looked up from his phone. Hey, Dad. Sophie ran toward him. Daddy, guess what? I got an A on my science project. Michael smiled for the first time all day. I'm so proud of you. She hugged him tightly. For a moment, everything felt okay. Then Emily asked, did something happen at work? Michael hesitated. No. It was the first lie he had ever told his wife. Days turned into weeks. Every morning, Michael pretended to leave for work. Instead, he spent hours filling out online job applications inside public libraries and coffee shops. Interview after interview. Rejection after rejection. We've decided to move forward with another candidate. We appreciate your application. We'll keep your resume on file. Soon, their savings disappeared. Then came the difficult choices. Emily canceled cable television. No more family movie nights. She canceled the streaming subscriptions. No more weekend entertainment. The air conditioner stayed off during the hottest week of summer. They stopped eating at restaurants. Birthday gifts became smaller, then disappeared altogether. Still, it wasn't enough. One evening, Emily opened the refrigerator. Almost empty. Half a carton of milk. Few eggs. Some leftover pasta. She quietly closed the door before the children noticed. That night she skipped dinner. She told everyone she wasn't hungry, but she was very hungry. Jake noticed things were changing. His parents whispered every night after they thought the kids were asleep. Sometimes he heard his mother crying. Sometimes he heard his father apologizing. Sometimes he heard nothing at all. That scared him even more. A week later, the electricity was shut off. The house became silent. No lights. No Wi-Fi. No television. Sophie looked confused. Dad, did we forget to pay? Michael couldn't answer. Emily gently hugged her daughter. It'll be okay. But even she wasn't sure anymore. The next morning, Michael secretly sold his wedding watch. It had been a gift from Emily on their 10th anniversary. The jeweler handed him only $280. As Michael walked out of the store, he stared at the empty space on his wrist. It wasn't just a watch. It was another piece of his life gone. That evening, Emily discovered the watch was missing. Where is it? Michael froze. I sold it. Emily's eyes filled with tears. You sold your anniversary gift? We needed groceries. She couldn't speak. Not because she was angry, because she finally understood how desperate things had become. Without saying a word, she hugged him. Both of them cried quietly in the kitchen. Meanwhile, Jake overheard everything. For the first time in his life, he realized his parents weren't superheroes. They were just two exhausted people trying to save their family. That night, Jake made a decision that would change all of their lives forever. The next morning, Jake woke up before sunrise. He couldn't stop thinking about what he had overheard the night before. His father had sold the anniversary watch. His mother had skipped dinner so the children could eat. For years, Jake had believed his parents could solve any problem. Now he realized they were barely holding everything together. He quietly looked around his bedroom. A gaming console. Designer sneakers. A new basketball. Things he had begged his parents to buy over the years. He suddenly felt guilty. Without telling anyone, Jake opened his laptop and searched. Part-time jobs hiring near me. Michael continued pretending to leave for work every morning. He put on the same dress shirt. The same tie. The same smile. Emily watched him leave every day, believing he was still employed. She had no idea he spent his mornings sitting inside the public library, sending out resumes and hoping for a phone call that never came. Each rejection made him question himself. After 20 years of hard work, was he no longer good enough? Emily's hours at the grocery store increased from 20 hours a week to 35. She accepted every extra shift she could. Some days she worked until midnight. She came home exhausted, only to wake up at 5 in the morning to prepare breakfast and get Sophie ready for school. She barely had time to breathe. Still, the bills continued to arrive. One afternoon, Jake walked into a small neighborhood grocery store. A handwritten sign in the window read, "Now hiring part-time stock associate." He took a deep breath and walked inside. The manager, Mr. Reynolds, looked up. "Can I help you?" "I'm looking for a job." "How old are you?" 16. "Do you have any experience?" Jake shook his head. "No, sir." The manager studied him for a moment. "You willing to work hard?" "Yes." "You willing to show up on time?" "Every day." Mr. Reynolds smiled. "Then you start Monday." Jake could hardly believe it. It wasn't a dream job. It wasn't glamorous. But it was a chance to help his family. For the next several weeks, Jake kept his new job a secret. Every afternoon after school, instead of going to basketball practice, he worked in the stockroom. He unloaded delivery trucks, stacked heavy boxes, cleaned aisles, swept floors. By the time he got home each night, his back ached and his hands were sore. Yet he never complained. His first paycheck was only $214. To most people it wasn't much. It felt like a fortune. That night, he quietly slipped the money into an envelope. On the front he wrote only 3 words. For the family. He placed it on the kitchen table before anyone woke up. Emily found the envelope the next morning. She opened it and stared at the cash. Confused, she looked around the room. Michael walked into the kitchen. What's that? I don't know. There was no name. No explanation. Just money. For a brief moment, they thought maybe someone had made a mistake. Neither of them imagined it had come from their own son. A few days later, another letter arrived. This one was from the bank. Emily opened it. Her face turned white. What is it? Michael asked. She handed him the paper. Final notice. If they failed to make their overdue mortgage payments, foreclosure proceedings would begin. Michael felt as if the floor had disappeared beneath him. The home where Jake had learned to ride a bike. Where Sophie had taken her first steps. The home filled with birthdays, Christmas mornings, and family memories. They were about to lose it. That evening, Michael finally told Emily the truth. I haven't been going to work. She stared at him. What do you mean? I lost my job 6 weeks ago. Emily couldn't believe what she was hearing. You lied to me? I was trying to protect you. Protect me. Tears streamed down her face. I've been blaming myself. Thinking I wasn't working hard enough. Michael lowered his head. I'm sorry. Emily's voice trembled. We're supposed to face problems together. You shouldn't have carried this alone. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Emily quietly reached across the table and held his hand. We'll get through this. Even though she wasn't sure how. But someone else had heard every word. Sophie. She stood silently in the hallway, hugging her favorite stuffed bear. That night, she cried herself to sleep. The following weekend, Jake's basketball coach called. Jake hasn't been at practice in over a month. Michael frowned. What? He was our best player. Michael immediately went upstairs. Jake. His son slowly looked up. Why did you quit basketball? Jake avoided eye contact. I've been busy. Busy doing what? Silence. Finally, Jake reached into his backpack and pulled out his employee ID badge. Michael stared at it in disbelief. You've been working? Jake nodded. I wanted to help. You should have told us. I knew you'd say no. Michael's voice cracked. You gave us that money? Jake nodded again. I figured groceries were more important than basketball shoes. Michael couldn't hold back his tears. For the first time in years, he hugged his son without saying a single word. That evening, the Carter family sat together at the dinner table. No television. No phones. Just silence. Finally, Sophie spoke. Are we going to lose our house? No one answered. Then Michael took a deep breath. I don't know. It was the hardest sentence he had ever spoken. The next morning, another setback arrived. Michael's truck wouldn't start. The repair shop estimated nearly $2,000 to fix it. Without transportation, job interviews became even more difficult. Every solution seemed to create another problem. Later that week, Emily received a call from the bank. The representative explained they had only 30 days left before foreclosure proceedings would move forward, unless they reached an agreement. Emily thanked the woman and quietly hung up. She walked into the backyard, sat alone on the old wooden swing, and cried. She wasn't crying over the house. She was crying because she felt like her family was slipping away. That evening, something unexpected happened. Sophie walked into the living room carrying a small pink piggy bank. She placed it gently on the coffee table. This is my birthday money, she whispered. You can have it. Emily immediately burst into tears. Michael knelt beside his daughter. No, sweetheart. But families help each other. Her innocent words filled the room with silence. Jake slowly walked over and placed his latest paycheck beside the piggy bank. We'll figure this out. For the first time in months, the Carter family wasn't hiding their pain from one another. They were facing it together. But none of them knew that an even greater challenge was only days away. A challenge that would test not only their finances, but their love, their faith, and their strength as a family. 3 days after Sophie placed her little pink piggy bank on the coffee table, the Carter family was still searching for hope. The bank had given them 30 days. 30 days to save the home they had spent nearly 20 years building. Every morning Michael sent out more job applications. Every afternoon he attended interviews. Every evening he came home with the same answer. "We'll let you know." But no one ever called back. The silence became more painful than rejection. One rainy Tuesday morning, Michael drove to another interview nearly an hour away. Halfway there, traffic came to a sudden stop. A delivery truck had lost control on the wet highway, causing a chain reaction accident. Michael slammed on the brakes, but another vehicle hit the back of his truck. The impact spun his truck into the guardrail. Everything went black. Emily's phone rang while she was stocking shelves at work. The caller ID read, "Unknown number." She answered, "Mrs. Carter?" "Yes." "This is Officer Daniels. Your husband has been involved in a traffic accident." Emily's heart nearly stopped. "Is he alive?" "Yes, ma'am. He's conscious and being transported to County Memorial Hospital." Without another word, Emily ran out of the store. Jake and Sophie met her at the hospital an hour later. Michael had a broken arm, several bruises, and a mild concussion. The doctor smiled gently. "He's lucky." Emily held Michael's hand tighter than ever before. At that moment, the house, the bills, and the debt didn't matter. She almost lost the man she loved. That night, as rain tapped softly against the hospital window, Michael looked at his family gathered around his bed. Jake sat quietly in the corner. Sophie held her father's uninjured hand. Emily wiped away tears she had been holding back for months. Michael's voice was weak. "I spent so much time trying to provide for this family." He paused. "That I forgot how much my family needed me, not just my paycheck." No one spoke. There was nothing to add. His words said everything. The following afternoon, something unexpected happened. Michael received a phone call from an old friend named Daniel. They had worked together years earlier. "I heard about the accident," Daniel said. "How are you holding up?" "I've been better." Daniel hesitated. "Listen. The company I work for is expanding. We need someone with your experience." Michael almost couldn't believe what he was hearing. "Are you serious?" "Very. It's not a management position. The salary is lower than your old job. But it's stable. And there's room to grow." Michael smiled for the first time in months. "I'd be honored." 2 weeks later, Michael started his new job. The paycheck wasn't as large as before. But this time, he left work at 5 o'clock every evening. No late-night meetings. No weekend emails. No 70-hour work weeks. For the first time in years, he was home for dinner. Life didn't magically become easy. The family still had debt. They still followed a strict budget. Vacations were canceled. Luxury purchases disappeared. Every dollar mattered. But something else had changed. Every evening they ate dinner together. No phones. No television. Just conversations. Jake talked about school. Sophie shared funny stories from class. Emily laughed more than she had in years. Michael listened. Really listened. One Saturday morning, Jake approached his father. "Dad, you know that basketball scholarship tournament?" Michael nodded. "I want to play again." A huge smile spread across Michael's face. "You never should have stopped." Jake looked down. "I thought helping the family mattered more." Michael placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "You already helped this family. Now let us help you chase your dream." That afternoon, Michael stood in the driveway passing basketballs to Jake for nearly 3 hours. Neither of them cared who won. They had already found something more valuable than victory: time together. Sophie also noticed the difference. Instead of falling asleep to the sound of arguments, she now fell asleep hearing laughter downstairs. One evening she quietly opened her sketchbook. Months earlier, She had drawn a house broken into 4 separate pieces. Now she picked up her colored pencils once again. This time she drew the same house. But instead of cracks, she filled every window with warm yellow light. In the front yard stood 4 smiling figures holding hands. Above them she wrote, "Home isn't perfect. It's together." A month later, the bank approved a modified payment plan. The Carter family would keep their house. Emily cried when she received the letter. Not because everything was solved, but because they had been given another chance. As Christmas approached, money was still tight. There were no expensive presents under the tree. No luxury decorations. No fancy holiday trips. Instead, the family baked cookies together, watched old movies wrapped in blankets, played board games until midnight, shared stories, laughed, sang off-key Christmas songs, and somehow, it became the happiest Christmas they had celebrated in years. On Christmas morning, Sophie handed each family member a folded piece of paper. It wasn't a store-bought gift. It was a handwritten letter. Michael unfolded his first. "Dear Dad, thank you for coming home before dinner. Thank you for helping me with homework. Thank you for smiling again. I don't need expensive toys. I just need my family." By the time he reached the last sentence, he couldn't read anymore. His eyes were filled with tears. Emily hugged both children. Jake quietly wiped his face. No one tried to hide their emotions. Several months later, Jake earned a partial basketball scholarship to a local university. Emily was promoted to assistant manager at the grocery store. Michael received excellent performance reviews at his new company. Little by little, the debt became smaller. Hope became stronger. The family became closer than ever before. One warm spring afternoon, the Carters sat on their front porch watching the sunset. The same house that had almost been taken away now felt more valuable than any mansion. Not because of its size, not because of its market value, but because of the love inside it. Michael looked at his family and smiled. "I used to think success meant earning more money." He shook his head. "I was wrong." Emily squeezed his hand. "What does success mean now?" Michael looked at Jake, at Sophie, then back at his wife. "It means coming home to the people who never gave up on me." Silence followed. Not an awkward silence. A peaceful one. The kind that only comes after surviving a storm together. Years later, Sophie stood before her high school graduation class as the student speaker. She ended her speech with the words she had carried in her heart since childhood. "There was a time when my family almost lost everything. We thought money was the biggest problem. But we discovered that the real danger wasn't being broke. It was forgetting to stand together. Homes are built with wood and bricks. Families are built with love, forgiveness, and never giving up on each other." The audience rose to their feet in applause. Michael and Emily looked at one another. Neither of them spoke. They didn't have to. They both knew they had survived the hardest chapter of their lives. And because they faced it together, they had found something far more valuable than wealth. They had found each other again. The end. Life lesson. Financial hardship can take away comfort, possessions, and security. But it doesn't have to take away love. Families that communicate honestly, support one another, and refuse to give up can overcome even the darkest seasons. In the end, the greatest wealth isn't found in a bank account. It's found in the people who stand beside you when everything else falls apart.